It's time for the Ward Scott Files, hosted by John Martin. Join the Salty Dog and his captain, Ted Yoho. Search for the Ward Scott Files on Facebook, Vimeo, and over 30 audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Now here's your host, the Salty Dog, John Martin.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Political Pirate Podcast show, hosted by yours truly, the old Salty Dog, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning, John. You look pretty dapper there. Looks like you got a haircut. Getting ready to go fishing.
I got a trim job, man, and I know you're always the world traveler. Tell us where you are right now, sir.
We are in Whitefish, Montana, right here at Glacier National Park. I'm working. I'm on a veterinary conference and doing the podcast from here remotely.
Well, just watch out for the buffalo and the grizzlies up there, man. But that is beautiful. That is literally God's country. It's amazing.
It really is. I don't believe I'll try to do an exam on either.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I always prepare our notes and stuff for the show the night before.
And a good job you do.
Well, I appreciate that, Ted. And I try to wait, and literally last night about 9 or 10 o'clock, I sent them to Ted, and literally 30 seconds after I hit the send button, boom, it comes on that Israel has hit Iran. And so, we got to start out the show talking about that. So just what are your initial thoughts after you've disseminated what's happened in the last 12 hours or so, Ted?
Well, I was there when we negotiated the JCPOA, which is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that Obama did with John Kerry. It was in 2015. And even then, as contentious as those arguments were, we had predicted that Iran would have a nuclear weapon, even with that in place, in 10 years. And so that would be 2025. And Israel has been under the threat of a nuclear attack from Iran. They said that Israel and the United States must be wiped off the face of the earth. And the intelligence showed that how close they were. And I think it's something you hate to see anybody do those things, but you can't wait for them to get a bomb because of how erratic the Ayatollah and the governing body is over there. So I think this is something we saw coming. I think the intelligence backed that up, and Netanyahu acted unilaterally and did what he had to do to save his country.
Yeah, and since we've been doing these talks just recently, during that time, Iran made no secret that they were ramping up their operations at the same time that they were talking to us. And this was coming, Ted. There was no doubt in my mind it was coming because, Donald Trump had tried to negotiate with them. As I said, they were ramping it up, people, dependents and stuff like that. So
our personnel.
It was a shock to me that this happened. The timing of it, I guess you would leave that up to Israel. But our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, put out that we're not directly involved in any of this. But I'm sure that the president knew about it. And he talked to Netanyahu earlier in the week, and you could tell. My first giveaway was when the President Trump was asked about whether or not this was imminent. He would say, well, we're still trying to negotiate. And they would just say simply that they can't have a nuke. But he wasn't really I think he was trying to play it cool, which I don't really blame him. And I don't blame the Israelis. But what was interesting is apparently what they've taken out so far that we know. And the reports are still coming in. They've hit all of their nuclear sites. Now, there's a couple of nuclear sites they have that they probably can only do limited damage to because they really need what they call like bunker busters because they're fortified under a mountain. But the ones they did. Apparently, Ted, they took out some scientists. Iran has admitted that. And then they hit the command structure. What was really interesting about that, the Mossad is unbelievable.
They really are.
But they had forces on the ground there, so that's no big surprise. But apparently they literally waited until this command structure went into this specific bunker that they knew they were getting. And once they knew they were all there, they hit that. So the Israelis, man, they just don't want to mess with the Israelis.
No, you don't. And you got to go back and look over the last 20, 30, 40 years, however far back you want to go. You've had the Palestinians with the previous leaders there, Yasser Arafat, and the chain of command that came after him. They've been poking Israel in the eye forever. And then you look at what Iran's been doing with the Houthis and the Hezbollah, funding those organizations, their proxy groups, poking Israel in the eye for the last 30, 40 years. And then we had the attack 2 years ago on October 7th. How long do you wait when somebody says, when we get a bomb, we're going to annihilate you? It's an existential threat. And if they tell you this and you look at their actions that they've been doing with the weapons they had, now they get a nuclear weapon. Do you think they're going to pause and play nice? Mm-mm. So it's a terrible thing that's happened, but I think it's something that was a bold thing that Netanyahu had to do to save his people. When we went over there, you can we're on this high rise right in the middle of Tel Aviv. And within a 12 or 23 mile radius, there was 80% or 90% of the Israelis lived right there. One bomb would wipe out about 90% of the country. So they can't afford to have a strike.
Well, Ted, you've heard me say this many times before, but as I say, if I say it, it bears repeating, that one of the things that got me when I was over in Europe last year, and I know you've done some extensive travel there as well, that you go through different places, especially around the Mediterranean, and every area there has a place where the Jews used to be. And some of it was obviously World War II,
right.
But some of it goes back a few thousand years. This is the area where the Jewish people used to be. Well, you combine that with what Israeli said after the Holocaust, never again, and they're not going to take the threats serious, and they should, and they're not going to have it where you say this is where the Israelis, Jewish people used to be. That's not going to happen unless they all go down fighting.
Well, I agree with that. And if you go post World War II, right after the Allied forces won and Nazi Germany and Japan conceded, Eisenhower went and toured the different camps at Darfur and Auschwitz. And I mean, he was just appalled, as everybody was, that saw any of those pictures and learned the story. He said, this will never happen again, or should never happen again. And it's happened too many times since then. You know, we've seen in Serbia and all those things like that with Milosevic. So do we wait? Like, again, how long do you wait before somebody says, when I get this, I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth? And that Kim Jong-un is doing the same thing. You know, I mean, he says the same thing. And, so he's going to watch, see what the response is, and go from there. The interesting thing, John, is you look at China and Xi Jinping. They're quiet on all this. I haven't read anything about them. And then you look at who's been funding the military or the armaments for Israel. You know, they're coming mainly from us. Who's funding Ukraine as far as military assets? It's mainly coming from us. So our stockpile is getting smaller. Xi Jinping here, and this goes back to the Art of War by Sun Tzu. Bide your time, hide your strength. Let your enemies deplete themselves and then act. So that's really back here in the back corner. They're just watching, biding their time, hiding their strength. And this is something the American people really need to understand. And that's why I wrote that editorial. Every time you buy something made in China, it's empowering them. And we'll talk more about some of the people that are funding the crazy stuff going around in our country right now.
Well, speaking of crazy stuff, I want to read a few comments from this kind of represents in general what the Democrats leadership has said about what just happened overnight. We're talking, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about Israel's preventative attack, as I would call it, against Iran. But Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, who he sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said Israel's attack on Iran was intended to thwart the Trump administration's negotiation with Iran, and it risked a regional war. That's nonsense. there always has been, in a sense, a regional war there. It's just been hot and cold. It's never really been peace. And the one man that's trying to make peace in the Middle East is Donald Trump. So really, he's insinuating that Israel attacked Iran to thwart President Trump's peace initiative. That is total nonsense.
I have to laugh when you say that's nonsense. I feel like a kung fu master. I say, "Oh, grasshopper, you have come to wisdom in life. It's time for you to leave." But it is nonsense. Chris Murphy, he goes on and says that had we stayed in the JCPOA, that Iran would not have a nuclear weapon. When they were negotiating this, and we were all against this, John Kerry and the International Atomic Energy Commission, our representative of that, I think his last name was Moines or Monois or something like that. He's, he was our expert, and he even said that they would have, even with the JCPOA in place, enough nuclear material, enriched material, to have a bomb within 10 years. Well, lo and behold, here we are. So this had nothing to do with Trump pulling out of it. It was a terrible deal that should never have happened, and it was never ratified. When we take our nation into these negotiations and they make these arrangements, they should be ratified by Congress. So it is a treaty. This was an agreement that John Kerry and Barack Obama did, and there was the majority of the House and Senate voted against this. There's 400 and some people in the House that voted against that. So that's Democrats voted against this too. But the Obama administration went ahead with this. This was that's where the nonsense is, John. This should never have been gone this far.
Well, Murphy is, and you kind of alluded to this. Murphy insinuates that if we'd have stayed in this group that you were just talking about,
JCPOA.
He said an agreement with Iran had brought Europe, Russia, China together behind the United States to successfully contain Iran's nuclear ambitions. I got to say it again, Ted. Nonsense. That's total nonsense that we could trust those people. It's unbelievable.
It is, but let me clarify.
Can't possibly believe that. Can he? Can he really believe that?
Those people came on board to support that agreement. But again, that agreement, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon within 10 years, period. So he's wrong. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, but his analysis is wrong. And he's playing politics with it.
But he goes on to say this, and this is just incredible to me. He says, this is Senator Murphy from Connecticut. He said, this is a disaster of Trump and Netanyahu's own making, and now the region risks spiraling toward a new deadly conflict. And he goes on to say this. Murphy said, America has no obligation to follow Israel into war. I mean, this guy, can he really and truly be that naive? I find that hard to believe.
He's playing politics. The elections will be coming up, and he wants to take this strong stance, but he's on the wrong side of this. We shouldn't follow anybody into war other than the ones we have an agreement with. But sometimes we have these strong relationships and alliances with, and we're going to protect our friends. Israel's like a baby brother to the United States, and it's the right thing to do. When you have a small nation like that has done so much, and to fight, to preserve, and protect themselves and their people, we're going to stay with them because they're a democracy, and we need to stick together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and play some politics on this myself. If you're a Jewish American, say it like it is, or you care about the state of Israel, or you want true peace in the Middle East, how can you possibly ever vote for these Democrats again? Because make no mistake, Murphy is speaking for the majority of the leadership of the Democratic Party. Now, there are some exceptions, without a doubt, like Mr. Fetterman came out and full support. But make no mistake about it, the people who have the death grip at the moment, and it really is a death grip on the Democratic Party, Murphy is speaking for them. There is no doubt. And I'll say it again. If you are a Jewish American, or you care about the state of Israel, or real peace in the Middle East, how can you ever support these people?
That's something you brought up that always perplexed me. You see these issues on where Israel stands and our support from, and how many Jewish people were against what was best for Israel, and they vote Democrat. And I just don't understand it. Or they'll be on the other side, strong support for Israel, but they vote Democrat. I'm like, it just there's a lack there, or the synapses don't connect properly.
Absolutely. And Ted, let me just tell you, and hear me out on this.
Tell me what it is.
Absolutely. I absolutely trust the Iranians. I absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Because I take them at their word. And their word has been death to America. They literally
since 1974.
In the morning, they wake up before, and this is the leadership. I'm not saying every Iranian, but the leadership that is running Iran at this moment, literally before they get their cup of coffee, they say death to America. And
death to Israel, death to America.
They want to, from the river to the sea, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I take them at their word. I really do.
Right. So the JCPOA was negotiated in 2015. There was a couple of years before that, and they were chanting that then. Now they've got the nuclear, enough rich uranium. They don't have to have a missile. They could put it on a tanker and come off the coast of New York or California or Florida, anywhere that's coastal, and they could detonate a nuclear weapon there. Heck, they could fly it over in a weather balloon like the Chinese did.
And we're in danger of them attacking us now from within, with all these people that are, there's some sleeper cells over here.
Well, they said they want to go after our bases around the world.
Yeah. So here's the thing I want people to understand, okay? And please chime in on Facebook and tell me where I'm wrong.
Please. Yeah, tell us.
Which side of the issue you're on, okay? Is there any doubt in anyone's mind, if they're a rational human being, that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would use it? Is there any doubt at all? I mean, there may be some doubt about North Korea. There may be doubt about Russia. There may be doubt about... Can anyone seriously doubt that these people would take them at their word that they would not use a nuclear weapon again and annihilate the West, including the United States?
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. And let's take it a step further. Once one is used in the modern world, in the 21st century, do you think that's going to empower somebody else like Pakistan and India or North Korea saying, oh, it's my turn, I want the attention? Do you think that's going to start and foment more of those in the 21st century? Can you think of where that might lead to? Iran could bring it in and take it into Russia and blow something up in Russia or in China, say the Americans did it, and it's one of those spy movies you watch that you hope never happens. But, too many of those movies are reality in the future. So this is something they should be stopped. And, I'm not for regime change, but I hope the Iranian people, not for us to do it, I hope the Iranian people rise up and throw these bums out of there and do what's best for their country.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it. The country, and I'm not knocking, I'm just telling it like I see it, that Saudi Arabia and all these countries that praised Donald Trump on his recent trip, I'm not knocking them. But if you want true peace in the Middle East, Iran has to be stopped, because if they obtain a nuclear weapon, you're going to have a nuclear arms race that spreads throughout the entire Middle East. Because believe me, they do not, the people like Saudi Arabia, people like even Egypt, Turkey, even throw them in, they do not trust Iran either. Okay, they're not necessarily big friends of the United States, or Israel, but they know that Iran, they would be next. So there would be a nuclear proliferation like you cannot believe if Iran is able to get a nuclear bomb.
It really would be. And I just, I hate to keep going on this point, but when it comes down that divide, you have Christian nations versus Muslim nations. All right. So the world's going to split. And it's like Barack Obama said, if a war broke out, I got to side with my Muslim brotherhood. And so you look at Turkey, who has the third largest standing army in the world, and they've got armaments. Who do you think they're going to stand with? Are they going to be a sideline player to try to keep score? Where's India fall into it? It's a mess. And this is where foreign policy, and I tell people it's the most important committee in Congress, because if you don't have good foreign policy, you have all this stuff. If you have strong foreign policy, walk softly, carry a big stick, it keeps the peace. And we had that peace since World War II. We are losing it. And it's like I told you that when I was in Japan, that Japanese legislator says, you guys are known as, you used to be the United States of America. You're the divided states of America. We've got to get our act together in this country and come together as Americans to stop this kind of nonsense in the future.
Yeah, and the scary thought, as we said at the top of the show, is Chris Murphy is on the Foreign Relations Senate Committee. So we're going to take a quick break. We hope you'll support our sponsors. If you'd like to be a sponsor, look at the tab on the screen that says contact Freddie and become.
We want you to be a sponsor.
Right. We need to get this message out to educate, motivate, and activate people, Ted.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
Welcome back to what I'm calling now the 3 Ps, our political pirate podcast. That's what we're going to be doing in the show, and we're glad to have you back. Well, we just got through talking about what was happening in Iran with Israel. Now we're going to move into some domestic issues, but all of this really in many ways is connected. So I'm going to use a little bit of a Breitbart template for the story, but feds handcuffed Democrat Senator Alex Padilla for disrupting Kristi Noem's press conference. And if you're wondering who the heck Alex Padilla is, you're in a good company, because most people don't know him. He is the rookie senator from the state of California that took Dianne Feinstein's place when she literally died after 100 years in office. But
we should thank him for that, but I don't think he's a change from this politics. He got in 2021.
So we're going to show you this video. Many of you probably already seen it because it's everywhere. But it's Alex Padilla storming into a press conference inside a federal building where Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, was given a press conference trying to explain what's happening on the federal side out there. And he storms in there. Check this out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Exaggerate and embellishing. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to
hands up.
How many of our ICE agents have been docked?
Well, there you have it. He's sitting in that. Now, Ted, let me tell you this. I don't know if you've seen all of this yet, but I was watching the response this morning on like MSNBC and stuff because I do, I watch shows so you don't have to. It's part of my
I appreciate it.
But they're trying to spin this as he identified himself. Now, you can hear in the video him saying, but he has no identification. He storms into this thing, and literally the Secret Service people that are there are doing their job. And when you think about what happened when Donald Trump's had a couple of assassination attempts, we just had the candidate for the president of Colombia gunned down. A couple of years ago, you had the guy that was in Japan, their prime minister or candidate was
Prime Minister
gunned
Abe
down in a situation like this. I mean, can you blame them for doing this?
Plus, she is a cabinet position secretary. She has a detail around her. Yeah, they did exactly what they're supposed to do. This guy was way off base. There's the proper channels to go through. He could announce that he was coming in ahead of time, got the okay from her and had a discussion there. But no, he stormed in there. It's all for media. He's, like you said, he's the junior senator from California, trying to make a name for himself, trying to side and fight for the people that are here illegally. More power to him. And I hope they deal with him the way they're supposed to. He put his hands on law enforcement. So no, you don't touch him. And
well, I tell you this, I saw, it's just kind of a sidebar, but it's pretty important. I saw a CNN poll that popped this morning. Okay, and this is going to piss some people off, but Donald Trump is now polling in an overnight poll, and this is after all this stuff has happened, is polling in the positive on economics, is polling in the positive. This is CNN now, on economics, on foreign policy, and on immigration. And the Democrats' poll number right now, approval of all of those things I just mentioned, is at 17%. 17%.
Wow.
So it's not working.
I just want to give a shout out for the Democrats. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's working great.
But Department of Homeland Security made a statement about this Padilla incident. They said Mr. Padilla was told repeatedly to back away and did not comply with officers' repeated commands.
Right.
And that Secret Service acted appropriately. They acted appropriately, Ted.
I tell you, it was a peaceful arrest. I didn't see any violence. It was a matter of fact. This is what you will do. Yeah.
Well, I want to play a video now that shows you why they have to react the way they did. Now, this is a bit graphic if you haven't seen it in a while, but this is the attempt on Ronald Reagan's life, and let's check it out and we'll come back and talk about it. It's very quick.
Shot fired. There are some injuries. Way one on Arctic.
Well, Ted, the reason I played that is because you see here is Ronald Reagan guarded by all these Secret Service, both plainclothes and, non. And literally this guy comes out of nowhere, Hinckley, I believe his name was, and shoots the president right then. You don't have time to react to any of this kind of stuff. I mean, you don't have time to think about it. Your training has to kick in automatically and all of that kind of stuff. So when someone bum rushes a cabinet official, like you said, that has Secret Service detail and all that, they have to react to their training. They don't get to sit back and go, well, I wonder if this guy really is Senator Padilla or not. And they probably couldn't even really hear him. It's ridiculous to imply that they should not have reacted the way they did, because if they'd reacted the way the Democrats wanted, it could have been deadly for someone.
Well, it could have been. I mean, Gabby Gifford in Arizona or New Mexico, that guy shot her, came up to her and shot her. These things happen all the time. Secret Service cannot afford to wait. And this guy, he deserved to be taken down. He deserves to, he may be censured and thrown out of the Senate for the nonsense that they're doing. And again, this is all ramping up because they're on the wrong side of the issue. They should be out there applauding and helping get the mess that they created under the Biden administration, the Obama administration.
Well,
this would not be going on. This would not be going on had they followed the rule of law and protected the borders of this country instead of playing politics with people's lives, using the immigrant, the legal and illegal, as a political pawn so that they could get elected and stay in power. It's shameful what they're doing. I mean, they all ought to be thrown out.
Yeah, it's I always say words matter, and to me, this is orchestrated. All of this is
Obama said that, but words matter.
Words matter, and this thing is totally orchestrated. And I'll give you two examples. One of them, we're going to play a quick video in just a second. But moments after Padilla went through all of this, he was out on the street and had a press conference. I mean, immediately, and
that's what they do.
Within a couple of minutes of this happening, Chuck Schumer, old Chucky, took to the Senate floor. Now, keep in mind, Padilla was supposed to be in D.C. He wasn't even supposed to be out there because they're voting on some stuff. And he was supposed to play in these.
Oh, that doesn't matter. I mean,
he was supposed to play in the baseball game and all that the night before. But Chuck Schumer, within minutes, went on the Senate floor and said this. Let's play this video.
Yeah, old Chucky.
Thrown to the ground, again, manhandled, brutally taken down, handcuffed. It was disgusting. Anyone who looks at it turns anyone who looks at this, it will turn their stomach to look at this video and see what happened. Reeks of totalitarianism. This is not what democracies do. Senator Padilla was there, legitimately in that building, to ask questions of what's going on in California, which everybody wants to know answers to. We don't get answers when we ask the administration questions in one way or another. So Senator Padilla was exercising his duty as a senator for his constituents to try and find out what happened. And instead, he gets manhandled.
Well, there you have it. There's Chuck Schumer literally moments after this happened. He says, there's a second video and all. And he calls for an investigation, Ted. In fact, do we really need to investigate this? It's pretty simple as to what happened.
I feel safer knowing Chucky's there on the Senate floor. This just reiterates and points out, you get the government you deserve, not the one you want. And he comes from New York. People like him get reelected. And you were talking about how this incident happens, and within minutes they're doing a press conference and, woe is me, democracy's broken. This is a threat to democracy. I had that incident with AOC. She's on the House floor, doing the crying. Should have gotten an Emmy Award or whatever they give out for that kind of acting. And then right after that, she's in the front of the Capitol laughing and saying the same things I said, or saying the same things I was accused of saying. Let me clarify that. And making money off of this on the Capitol steps. And, Chucky, you're wrong. You got to talk to your members and get on the right side of the American people. But we don't want you there.
Well, see, Chuck Schumer he really represents everything that's wrong with the United States Senate and Congress.
I think that's
and
very,
there are
very.
Republicans like that too. Mitch McConnell, and this is where it comes a full circle, because I really believe that Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell
Circle of life.
it gets biblical, because I think they were like mates on the ark myself, because they've been around since Methuselah. I mean, it's unbelievable. But
do you think they know where the unicorns went?
they probably do. But I love Chuck says there's an investigation. All right, Chuck, I'm going to save the taxpayers a bunch of money right here, too, because that's what I do. Here's your investigation. The jerk got jerked to the floor. The guy that went in there being a jerk got jerked down. And I tell people on the fishing boat all the time, you only need a jerk on one end of the line. You don't need to jerk jerk down there. But the jerk got jerked to the floor.
That's a good one.
Investigation. That's it.
That's right. And it was mainly peaceful protest.
It was a mostly peaceful takedown. Unbelievable, man. Well, we'll keep you posted on all that. But all of this stuff is related to, because now we're going to start talking about, it's a little bit about the FBI investigating who's putting money into all this, because you talk about orchestrated. These riots are orchestrated. I'm not saying everybody out there, but the ones that are leading the charge on this, there's little doubt that they're being paid. But this comes to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Epic Times. FBI investigating money trail behind Los Angeles riots, and Kash Patel, leader of the FBI, said this. This is what he said. The FBI is investigating any and all monetary connections responsible for these riots, according to Kash Patel told the Epic Times, and that there's concerns that there may be, imagine this, Ted, it's going to shock you, I know, that the Chinese may be financing some of this.
Oh, no, not the Chinese again. This just goes on. You look at this stuff, where the money is coming from, how organized, and I know you have that video where the loading stuff from the truck that's in all packages, and China is behind us. The founder of Code Pink, Jody Evans, they're a billionaire funding the left side. The heiress of Walmart, worth I think $19 billion, is help funding the left against Donald Trump. And these are the people that, the left has billionaire oligarchs, but they're okay. They're good people. So they're not really oligarchs. They're stand-up citizens for America. No, they're working to tear this country down, working with the likes of China. This one party is called the Party of Socialism and Liberation. It's a communist organization, and they work directly with China in the United States.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a video. We're going to play it right now. And check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Let me set this up. This is in L.A., and this was a couple of days ago. I love how the Democrats are saying, you're showing video from 2 or 3 days ago. Okay, so it was peaceful now, but it was, it's just the crap they come up with is insane. But they're passing out gas masks in this and riot gear to the so-called protesters. Check this out.
This is not an organized rally like we saw earlier in the day, where you have the different organizations that are backing some of these protests. This is more, she said, organic, and maybe that's what you're seeing there. I'm hoping that is.
What are those boxes?
Are those masks of some sort? Are those gas masks?
I'm trying to see that doesn't look like food.
Yeah, those are.
Looks like masks.
Yeah, no, those are masks. Yeah, so people are prepping for some sort of altercation with police as we speak.
Yeah, this is a different scene than what.
This intersection, like I said.
Yeah. We saw
at this intersection, like I said, there's no local police. We've been seeing the burnouts.
A very different scene, and are those?
It's not like they're handing out something from KFC. I had a tornado hit our area back in the 80s, and I was out there cutting wood, and I got the Red Cross came by and gave me an orange drink and a Big Mac. So I took that. That's the only time I've ever taken anything.
It must be America.
Yeah, and I took that, but they're not just passing out orange drinks and Big Macs. They're passing out literally face shields, regular shields, and gas masks. You can't tell me this is not orchestrated.
I know it is. Well, again, it's these groups behind that. When they did the George Floyd protests in Gainesville and the Black Lives Matter, I got called by a business owner who said that this unknown group had dropped off a pallet of red bricks to throw into the Target store. They were going to loot it, but luckily it didn't happen in Gainesville, which I'm surprised because they get a little violent or a little agitated there, and you're going to talk more about that. But who funds it? Again, this Code Pink, the groups that sponsor Code Pink and did that. And this lady goes on to say, China is not our enemy. They are our friends. And these people are way off unless they're in China's back pocket, which they are. China's ultimate goal, and that's what, I wrote that editorial. China's ultimate goal is world dominance, world domination, the world hegemon, economically, militarily, socially. And if you don't believe that, you're missing the boat here. We have to stand up and do everything we can to move our economy, to weaken China's economy. And we do that by not buying stuff made in China. And that's hard. But that's who's funding these. And that's not them. It's Iran. It's Russia. It's North Korea. They're all in this against the United States because we have liberty and freedom. And they can't afford to have that in their country because if they do, those regimes would not be in power.
Yeah, you mentioned cheap goods from China, and I was thinking about the Walmart heiress, back in some of this. And then we remember back when they had the Black Lives Matter riots that Amazon was actually a sponsor of Black Lives Matter. I wonder if there's any connection there. Because people can't shop. They lose. Now they got to buy everything online or go to Walmart. So there you go.
No, Walmart, your Home Depot, these big box stores, they're just retail chains or retail outlets for China. Pick up a product. How many don't come from China? Very few. And every time we buy something and it says made in China, I consciously go in and I look for something made from Taiwan, Vietnam, somebody else. Vietnam's a communist country, but they're a friendly country to us. And, I'll buy something, I'll go out of my way, pay more to buy something from a country other than China. And if the American people did that, it wouldn't take long. This would change within a month's time. We have to suppress the economic engine that China gets that we're funding.
Well, some of these groups are just open about what they're doing. They're not even trying to hide it, Ted.
Yeah.
But according to this Epoch Times article, it says one group backing the unrest is the Party for Socialism. Imagine that. And liberation. How can socialism and liberation go together? A communist political party, check this out, linked to networks funded by pro-Beijing tech tycoon Neville Roy Singham. So open about this. Are we at war, Ted? Think about this. If they're funding people who are attacking inside the United States, isn't that a type of war?
I think it is, John. It's the build up to it. And the sad thing is you have Americans that are supporting this. It's like the Jewish Americans that are supporting Palestine. Their thinking's just not right. And, when I look at it, I'm like, how can they do this? For people that are billionaires and made money in an open market system, they're working against it because I don't know, something happened in their childhood. I don't know what it is, but the heiress of Walmart, who's never worked a day in her life, worth $19 billion because of what old Sam Walton did, and she's funding stuff like this. I think there ought to be an inheritance aptitude test before they can inherit their money. A lot of those people wouldn't qualify.
You already mentioned earlier about Code Pink. They're involved in this as well. And this guy named Manolo, and I apologize for the name, De Los Santos, he's co-executive director of a group called the People's Forum, and he's a resident of New York City. Well, these two organizations have been cross-posting on X. Like I say, they're not even trying to hide this. You can imagine what they're doing undercover if they're willing to admit this. They have solidarity with the rioters. Both have been calling for more protests in their respective locales. So they're calling for more people to come out and protest. And they're just posting it on X. They really don't care. They're not even afraid at all.
Well, the People's Forum, like you said, has openly commented on this, and that's part of this group. And it says, yes, we stand with Palestine. Yes, we oppose the U.S. war drive on Russia and China. And yes, for the thousandth time, he's received donations from our friend Roy Singham, a former Black Panther and lifelong socialist who had a bank account at Goldman Sachs. These are the people that are here in this country. I mean, they're American citizens, and they're working against what America stands for. America's not perfect. I mean, it's not a perfect country, but when you compare it around the rest of the world, it's the perfect country I want to live in.
Well, our founding fathers admitted that from the jump start in order to form a more perfect union. We never claim perfection.
A more perfect, yeah. Very good, John.
We're trying to be a more perfect. There's a lot of words matter. I mean, like life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee, the pursuit of happiness. Whether or not you can find happiness is largely up to your efforts as an individual, especially these days. But, China is a threat. There's no question about that. But there's plenty of anti-Americanism right here in the United States of America. And it's not just these yahoos we were just talking about who are openly supporting this. But I want to play you a clip. And it comes from about an hour-long clip. I'm not going to, subject you to that. But this is the current mayor of Chicago. And this was towards the end of a press conference he had just a couple of days ago. I want to play this, and we'll come back and talk about it. It's amazing to me.
It's a good clip.
I've been saying this for months before the November election, that there are those in this country who have not accepted the results of the Civil War. And it's a war on our culture. It's a war on our democracy. It's a war on our humanity. I am counting on all of Chicago to resist in this moment, because whatever particular vulnerable group is being targeted today, another group will be next. Now, look, I know that there is an effort to divide us in this moment, but none of us are immune from.
So in that clip, Ted, this is the mayor of Chicago now talking about that all Chicagoans, all residents of Chicago, whether they be legal, regardless of your race, creed, or color or standard, should resist the federal government and law enforcement trying to stop, people, mayhem on the streets and everything else. I mean, it's incredible. And then he goes on to say,
he's calling for an insurrection.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He goes on, and this is what was really crazy to me. Shows you he has no concept of history. He talks about in another clip the Confederacy. And in this clip, he talks about people not believing that the Civil War is over. And the last time I checked, Ted, the Civil War was between the Confederate South, correct? Who were all Democrats. They were Democrats.
All Democrats.
And the North was Republicans led by one of the great presidents of all time, an Illinois resident, a guy named Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, gave his life, was shot by a madman, not too dissimilar to
a Democrat.
A Democrat, absolutely.
A Democrat that came up in a crowd, or came up in
literally saying
John Wilkes Booth,
that the federal government doesn't have a role in Chicago. Well, excuse me, but the federal government is what freed the slaves. He's alluding to that. It was the federal government, love it, hate it, whatever, freed the slaves. It was John F. Kennedy that sent troops, federal troops, into Alabama to desegregate the schools that were being held up there. All of this Democrats, and the Democrat did that.
But that federal government intervention was okay.
Yeah, and Lyndon Baines Johnson sent federal troops into Detroit and gave them orders to shoot looters on sight. And at least 11 of them were killed. About 40-some people died in those riots in Detroit. And LBJ sent them in there. But Donald Trump sends in the troops into California. And check this out. The troops in California are guarding federal facilities. They're not just out on the street arresting people. That's nonsense. That's not what's happening. I get passionate about this because there's so much nonsense out there, Ted. That's why people need to watch our show. They need to watch our show because we battle ignorance daily here.
No, that was a great point you brought up. And for this mayor to do that, I mean, we see this over and over again. I mean, Karen Bass is out there, and she saw a mostly peaceful protest. They didn't get violent until Trump called in the National Guard. No. Miss Bass, you're wrong. You guys are promoting and protecting the looters. You're promoting and protecting the people that are anti-Americans, one that are carrying, Mexican flags for other countries and chanting, and burning the American flag, but they're promoting their flag. I mean, it's unconscionable, and the American people aren't going to stand up for it. This is why the Democrats lost. And I just hope you keep doing what you're doing to the point where everybody realizes we're never going to vote for you guys again, and we come together as Americans.
Yeah, well, I want to read something, and this comes from the U.S. Constitution. You can check it out yourself. This is U.S. Constitution, Article 4.
You're going to confuse people, John.
Article 4, Section 4. It says
Article 4.
Every state shall be guaranteed a Republican, I'm not talking about Republicans, a Republican form of government,
right,
and protected from invasion. Every state should be protected from invasion and have a representative republic, is what they're saying there, which is what we supposedly have.
Right.
Every state. So what President Trump is interpreting that, I think rightfully so, is that he has a duty as the commander-in-chief to protect every state from invasion. And I want to read one more thing.
When the governors...
Turn it over to you, Ted. I read this last week on our show. Invasion. This is a couple of definitions of invasion. An incursion by a large number of people or things into a place or sphere of activity. Another secondary definition, an unwelcome intrusion into another's domain. Is that not exactly what is happening in California, LA, Chicago, all across our country? We're being invaded. And if you believe that, then I think Donald Trump is following the Constitution.
He's doing exactly what needs to be done. His job, his number one job of the federal government is national security. And when these governors, senators, mayors, leaders in those states fail to protect the citizens and, like you said, federal property, it is the duty of the President of the United States to call out the National Guard. And if needed, and I hope we don't, use the military in a way that protects those assets and people. And, again, these Democrats, they're just, I just don't understand their thinking. I don't understand the hatred they have for this country, especially the mayor from Chicago, where they have one of the highest death rates in the nation. That happens every week. We get the crime rate from Chicago and how many people have been murdered or killed or shot. And, he ought to worry about his own house before he starts complaining about somebody else's. I think that's biblical. Jesus said, don't worry about the sliver in your neighbor's eye when you have a timber in your own.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Ted, hang in there for a minute and just a second.
I'm hanging, buddy.
I'm going to tell you exactly what the Democrats are doing. I'm going to tell it in just a second.
Speak to me here.
I want to show this quick meme that I posted on our Facebook site. If we can put it up there and hold it, it says prison. I want to show
this is a great one.
Really quickly, if we can get it up there. All right. There, prison right there.
There you go, Zach. You did a good job.
Socialist paradise. Thank you, Zach. Everyone treated equally, Ted. Free food, free health care. Only the police and guards have guns, which they do in prisons, in the towers and stuff. This is exactly what a social paradise would look like. So we're putting them in jail, which is exactly where apparently they want to be.
It really is. It really is. And, I think of the squad in Washington. They're promoting a Venezuelan type utopian if we all become socialists. And you've heard me say before, the leader of the Socialist Party in America, the Democrat Socialists of America, that went out and recruited the likes of AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib. He said that socialists are all communists, but they're socialists until they get socialist and then become communists. You know, the writing's on the wall, and that's why Donald Trump is standing up, and we need to support him for that.
Well, lean in, everybody. I'm going to tell you exactly why the Democrats, like from Padilla, all of them, why they're doing what they're doing.
I'm going to get my pen out. Write this down. I know it'll be good.
Back during the 2020 election, I knew Donald Trump was in trouble when this happened. I was in a Publix, which is a regional shopping center in this part of the country, and this lady who was a bagging groceries, she was probably about 70 years old. And I don't know how it came up, imagine this, but talking about the election. It was coming up to the election for Trump and Biden and all. And she said, well, I like Donald Trump, but I'm probably going to support Joe Biden because I want things to just get back to normal. To normal. In other words, she wanted to be like the frog simmering in the pot, not thrown into boiling water. And that's exactly
just going to say that. Yeah.
The strategy of the Democrats right now. They want as much chaos as possible so that people will long for the day when we're just normal, when we're just simmering in that boiling pot. That's the way I see it.
I think you're absolutely right. I was trying to look up real quickly. There's an essay, and I can't remember the general's name. It's called the sheep, the sheepdog, and the wolf. You know, people want what they call normalcy. And in this essay, the sheep's natural predator is the wolf. And so this herder got these sheepdogs to protect the sheep, and they were new to the sheep. So it was an unknown to the sheep, these sheepdogs. And so when he introduced them, the sheep ran closer to the wolf, their natural enemy, because they were afraid of the unknown. And that's what the lady cashier or bagger was at Publix. She didn't want to get out of her status quo, her comfort zone. And so they're going to, well, we don't want to rock the boat too much. No, the boat needs to be rocked. It needs to be turned over in some of these programs. That's what Trump's doing. And it's shameful that people won't stand up behind him. Let him complete the job, and then we'll move on from there. But we can't go on like we are. We are heading. The Civil War is here. I think World War III is here. We're just at the beginning. We're at the commercials in the beginning of the movie.
I hear you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our Political Pirate podcast as much as we've enjoyed bringing it.
Right. That flows nicely when you say that.
Yeah, please like and share far and wide what we're doing. We're going to keep bringing you the truth, and we're going to keep trying to educate, motivate, and activate people there. Give you the last word, Ted.
Well, I want you to tell them where you're going to be this weekend, and you're going to live stream
this No Kings protests all across the country. There's one not too far over in the San Francisco of the South here, Gainesville, Florida.
That's the one the heiress of Walmart and Disney, I think, are doing. They're supporting that.
Stream it. So wherever you're watching our show now, tune in tomorrow morning, and I'll do it. But we'll see you. Have a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.